The raw deal continues. We, the American people, held hostage. We are still in the clutches of the hostage crisis known as the Clinton presidency. Folks, I've got to tell you something. We got a very busy show tonight, and I got to be real fast about everything I do. Because, I went back to the control room just a moment ago to make final arrangements and to discuss final changes in tonight's show. And I see Joel Parks sitting back there in the control room, and there's a stack of quarters. I've had this happen on my radio show when I would say to the beginning show, okay, we got a homeless update, we got a feminist update. They start taking bets on whether or not I'd get it all in. I will wager here that there is a wager back there as to whether I get all the video pieces in tonight's show, right? That's what those quarters mean? Is that right? I knew it. Yeah, see, it's right. Okay. So, and there's a lot to do tonight. So here we got more on Travelgate. This is a real scandal. This is the way we opened the show the other night. George Stephanopoulos wanted travel agents. Joe Biden has his idea of what's going wrong in the White House. Tom Foley is going to tell you why he thinks that you ought to encourage the president's tax plan to pass. And the fourth monitor is a goodie. My friends, this program, depending on when you see it, may be the final program during the prestigious May sweeps. This is the important rating period. It's February, May, and November. Big, important rating sweeps. And I just want to call attention to what we haven't done here. There have been no gay nuns on dope during the May sweeps here. There have been no sidewalks that swallowed up my kids. We haven't done multiple orgasms, but no multiple partners. We haven't had an endless parade of authors or guests. We haven't had a band leader. We had nothing but you and me, and our ratings are doing this, proving that you don't have to sink to the lowest common denominator in America to get people to watch your television show. Just want to point that out. Thank you. That's absolutely right. Also, a very quick thing. The Reagan years, the last 12 years, decade of greed and selfishness, right? Everybody says we've got to change what happened in the last 12 years. Guess what? 1992. Americans donated more to charity in 1992 than in any year since 1963. Actually, the percentage of their income donated to charity, a greater amount than any year since 1963. Proving once it's another bit of evidence that the notion that the 80s was a decade of greed and selfishness is a lie. It is not based in fact. It's just part of the fraud and deceit that we get from this administration. Monday night, my good friend Mary Madeline asked me if I would come on a show that she was beginning with Jane Wallace called Equal Time on CNBC. I said, sure, Mary, I would love to do it. Anything I can do to help. I've met Jane. I like Jane. I know Mary, know them both very well. Did the show. Great show. It was a great show because I was on it. It was their first show. You know, first shows, you get nervous. They were a little bit nervous, but I was there. I saved the day. Now, wait. No, hey, we're just going to deal with the facts here. Now, let me tell you what my Monday was like. Monday, I just got back from a weekend of jet setting all over the country for Dan's Bake Sale. It was a tremendously busy weekend. On Monday, I had a radio show to do. I had 2 of my own TV shows to do. I had 2 interviews to do, and then I did their show. Today, in the Philadelphia Daily News, or the Inquirer, whichever it is, Gail Schister does a story in which Jane Wallace complains that I was too talkative, that I monopolized the show, that I wasn't interested in exchange of ideas. No, all I wanted to do was come and simply dominate the program. She didn't ask questions designed for exchange of ideas. She made me defend my positions. Okay, what's a feminazi? Tell me. And she didn't. Okay, when I finished that, okay, then what about gays? And I said what I had to say about gays. I think to blame the guest for a successful show is really weird. Really, really weird to blame the guest for a good show. Well, so we're going to show you a clip from this show. Now, you see if I'm talkative. You see if I am part of a gab fest. You see if this is a representative example of me dominating and using the show as a bully pulpit. Here's cut one. Take a look.
I wanted to ask Rush that if he considers himself a serious political conservative commentator,
a lot of talk there.
How does he justify some of the theatrics and, for example, like split screen mimicry of some of the people he features, some clips from their speeches on his show, and if he could picture somebody like William Buckley doing that, or George Will, or some of the
Phil,
other.
before Rush answers, do you find anything that he does funny?
I do find some of the things he does quite humorous, as a matter of fact.
Do you find them educational and informative?
Some things that Rush does I do find educational and informative, and other things I very much disagree with. And he's an expert, though. I think he's a wonderful entertainer.
Have at it, Rush.
All right,
Can
here's
you be an entertainer and a serious commentator?
There's an easy answer to this question. In fact, I was just asked this question today in a little bit of a different way. I have chosen radio and television as my primary stages, and these are businesses. And so if I'm to succeed, I have to satisfy the business requirements for both radio and TV. There's certain, and they're media, and they are showbiz. I am not going to apologize for having perfected my showbiz approach to what I do in both media. George Will's a columnist. He does what you have to do as a good columnist. Buckley is an intellectual, and Buckley has chosen the forum that he is most comfortable with to get his message out. I think I'm redefining the way a lot of things are done on radio and television, and you know, the pioneers take the arrows. I do consider myself a serious commentator in that I'm very honest with people about what I believe, and the idea is to communicate it. So there you have it. I think it was clear communication. I think it was an example of me being polite. I listened to the caller ramble on, and then I listened to Jane try to answer the question for the caller instead of me answering to whom the question was asked. And even at that, I made the show. We'll be back with the rest of our show right after this.
Rush Limbaugh, I understand, was saying that your team is a team of destiny and that they were going to do it over the weekend, and Rush professed full faith in you, his good friend, and in your team. That vote of confidence help you, or what do you think about that whole thing from the Rush man?
Well, Rush is not God, but he's about the next best thing that we have. So if Rush says it, you can be pretty sure it's going to come true.
There I am advising Coach Westfall on the plays to call while on the bench. The Phoenix Suns, that was Charles Barkley. We'd like to congratulate him here. He's named the MVP of the National Basketball Association this season. And Paul Westfall said something very interesting. When the Suns traded for Barkley, there are a lot of people in Phoenix who said, Barkley in Phoenix? What are you going to... Phoenix is a very conservative town. What are you going to bring him out here for? And Westfall said, well, you know, I've listened to Rush Limbaugh, and I know what conservatism is. Barkley is the epitome of conservative. He's a guy who's overcome a lot of obstacles himself. He's become one of the best at his profession, reached the pinnacle, didn't do it with anybody's help, didn't ask anybody for assistance. I mean, he's right out of the Rush Limbaugh conservative mold, and Phoenix is conservative. Why, I think it'd be a great match, and it has been. And I'm happy to have been even a peripheral part of it. All right, got to go fast. February this year. Remember, they announced the White House staff cuts, the first of many webs of deceit woven by this administration. And they trotted out the chief of staff, Mac McClarty. Nobody had seen him up to this time. I had this to say about Mac McClarty back in February on this show. Watch this. This is Mac McClarty. This is the chief of staff. Isn't it strange we've been into the administration 3 weeks and this is the first day this guy's popped out of his hole? Normally, chiefs of staff, they're out there taking the hit on everything. If this administration were Republican and the chief of staff were Sununu, they'd already be calling for this guy's ouster for ineptness. But he is just coming out of the woodwork now, folks. And he did so to announce the staff cuts today. If he thinks this was tough, wait till it's time to start handling the cover-ups that are sure to come in this administration. He's really got a challenge. Cover-ups in this administration, and the first cover-up has begun. That shows that I am a prognosticator, my friends. You should have been applauding that. People are sitting here in awe. They can't. Audience is going, whoa. All right, so what's the cover-up? Well, the cover-up is a whole bunch of things. First off, it's Travelgate, but more importantly than that, it is the use of the FBI to fire 7 people and then hire them back in the White House for the express purposes of allowing Clinton's friends to take over some of the business. Now, before we get into the latest developments, let's take you back to the period following the election. So I think it's last November, maybe December, and Clinton, you remember the woman in the State Department who it was said investigated, I think it was Elizabeth Tam Posey. She investigated to see if Clinton had any record of irregular behavior while a student at Oxford when he went to Moscow. Remember all the controversy? There were a bunch of rumors, and it was discovered that somebody in the State Department had looked into his file. Here's what he said if he ever found anybody doing anything like that in his administration. Watch this.
I'm glad Miss Tam Posey had to leave her job about 6 weeks early. I thought that was an appropriate thing to do. I don't know that I know enough to give you a final judgment. Let me just say this. If I catch anybody using the State Department like that when I'm president, you won't have to wait till after the election to see him gone.
Let's just substitute FBI for State Department in there. Real tough guy, isn't he? Real tough guy. Well, so it's now happened in his administration. And how is his administration handling it? Is it as he promised? Well, you be the judge. Take a look.
It had nothing to do with any decision except to try to save the taxpayers and the press money. I knew it was going to be done, but the decisions were entirely theirs.
It's a decision by the Attorney General and the FBI.
Talk to the Attorney General of the FBI. I knew it was going to be done, but the decisions were entirely theirs. For one thing, this issue was never an issue. It never occurred to anyone to make it an issue until Zoe Baird voluntarily disclosed it. So no one knew. I simply can't tell you that I know something I don't, though. I literally don't know anything other than what I told you.
Hey, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Well, you don't remember what I said, Harry S. Truman? The buck stops here. Bill Clinton, the buck never got here. There's more on this when we come back. Don't go away. Okay, so we're in the middle here of Travelgate. It is a scandal, and it's not going to go away because the law was probably violated. Ethics certainly were. There's no question about that. The interesting thing is here now to see how this administration handles it. We're right in the middle of showing you how they handle it. So they fired the 7. Then they said, no, wait a minute. We only fired 2. We're bringing 5 back on administrative leave with pay while we investigate them. Then they trot Stephanopoulos out to explain what happened. And here's how that went.
In our case, I would just point out that we were simply at the beginning calling the FBI for advice on how to move forward. We were not calling them in, requesting an investigation of any kind. The subsequent contacts after the auditors continued that.
This is such a great policy. Why are you now saying that in the future you won't do it this way?
For precisely the reasons that the White House counsel stated in the memo. We want to make sure that there's absolutely no appearance of impropriety. Questions were raised. We want to erase any such questions being asked.
The lawyer said nothing was done wrong, but you're not going to do it again.
In this particular matter, this is not an occurrence that happens an awful lot. I mean, this is internal security in the White House having to do with personnel. We want to make sure.
Other instances?
There are, the matters come up every once in a while with possible criminal involvement. Sure.
We called the FBI. No, we didn't ask them to do anything for it. I'm telling you, folks, I mean, how long is it going to take before people, in fact, I think people are figuring it out. That you just can't trust what this administration says from one day to the next. You can't trust that they know what they're talking about. You don't know if they know what they're talking about and lying to you. That's what I think. Little subliminal thought there. But I really did. I love Helen Thomas, our gal in Washington, who says, well, if you didn't do anything wrong, how come you're not going to do it again? Everything's going down the drain, as she once said. So what does Newt Gingrich think of this? Here's what he thinks we ought to do.
I think people need to be dismissed. I think there needs to be an independent counsel appointed by Attorney General Reno. And I think any steps short of that are completely inadequate faced with a potentially real threat to the system.
Now, that's the Republican side. We want to be fair. We're balanced on this show. Let's go talk to Joe Biden and see what he thinks of this mess.
It just seems to me to be a case where inexperienced people in Washington...
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold it a minute. Hold it just a sec. Hold it a minute. I did not say I want... Were we running men's hair now ads? I want Joe Biden. I don't want a men's hair commercial right now. What are you doing?
That's it, Rush.
That's not Biden. That's a guy in a hair commercial. Where's the picture that we had in the monitor up here when we... What's going on? See this? These are transplant plugs. They've been that way for ever since... well, gee whiz, since the Bork hearings, at least. Are we to believe this stuff's just been growing in the land? It was that way during Zoe Baird. Oh, well. What did he say? It doesn't matter what he said. It's a Democrat trying to defend this administration, and it's probably better for him that we don't show you what he said so that he doesn't look as foolish. Back in a moment. Don't go away. They're going to vote in the House of Representatives on the president's tax plan. It's a big vote. They ought not pass this. A tax increase, the absolute worst thing that could happen for you and for this country. And it's going to be a close vote. Tom Foley, Speaker of the House, had this to say on Wednesday on the eve of the vote. Watch this.
President Reagan in 1981 called for the reduction of taxes. Unfortunately, those reductions combined with higher defense spending and a recession got us into the kind of problem we're in today in terms of the deficit.
Wrong.
But it was relatively easy for him to get support from the country to lower taxes. This is a harder part. Cutting spending and raising taxes to deal with a deficit is not popular. It's not easy, but it's terribly important. It's critical, in fact, to our economic future. And I think the president should be commended for taking the tough choices.
Congressman, let me tell you something. We cut taxes and doubled revenues to the Treasury. You guys just outspent even the previous Congress before you. This was not a Ronald Reagan problem. And Ronald Reagan had a Democrat Congress. Clinton has a Democrat Congress. This stuff ought to be sailing through like hot knife through butter. But it isn't, because it's a bad plan. I understand you got to be out there supporting this plan, but it's a bad plan, and the best thing that could happen for this tax plan is for it to go down to defeat. Now, there are alternative plans out there, but the Speaker seems to ignore those. Watch this.
Neither the Republicans in the House, nor Senator Boren's proposal, nor any other, nor Mr. Perot's, nothing is both equitable and effective as this plan is in dealing with this issue at this time. That it's very important to the economic future of the country that we take this action after 12 years of large-scale drift on the deficit, growing year by year with the debt now imperiling our economic future. This is a tough kind of redress that has to be taken in policy, and it's consciously a difficult vote, but it's one I think that members are ready to take.
Blah, blah, blah. That's the rhetoric of a political dinosaur. Everybody knows that Ronald Reagan's tax cuts did not cause the deficit because more revenue flowed in. There were alternative plans. John Kasich from Ohio presented one that even Perot likes. It's one that has no tax increases whatsoever. The Boren plan he's talking about, it was a better plan. The Clinton presidency said, give us specifics. They showed them specifics. The Clinton people wouldn't talk to them. You are not hearing the truth from Speaker Foley on this. Now, finally, as I win the bet, I'm getting all these clips in there. There's a teacher. Don't distract me back there. There's a teacher, Longview, Washington. Larry Wagle was suspended Tuesday without pay for 2 weeks for giving his students extra credit for buying condoms. Here's this guy.
It saves kids from getting AIDS. If you want to figure it all out, I bet you that you probably save 5 or 6 or 7 kids for every one that you endanger by any encouragement toward promiscuity. I expect I might lose a battle, but I hope to win a war.
How do you like this guy's odds? You lose 1 for every 6 that you save. I ran the numbers. 1 out of 6 is about 16%. That means if 16 people get on an airplane, and the pilot says, or if 100 people get on an airplane, pilot says, 16 of you are not going to make it. Do you think all 100 are going to get on? I mean, this is absolutely crazy. And he says, in danger, that means lose. I like abstinence. The odds are much better there. It works every time it's tried. See ya.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following. Rush Limbaugh's Wardrobe by Rochester, big and tall. Send your Rush video to The Rush Limbaugh Show, 515 West 57th Street, New York City, New York, 10019.
If you'd like to order a video cassette of Rush's TV show for only $24.95, just call 1-800-FOR-VIDEO. For a transcript, send $5 to Burrell's Transcripts, Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039, or call 1-800-777-TEXT.